How do we keep on getting this lucky? The Chicago Bears might have just clinched the number one overall pick in back-to-back years. Not officially yet, but a very good chance they have after the Patriots beat the Steelers on Thursday Night Football in a very unexpected victory in which our old friend Mitch Trubisky helped us out a little bit in our draft position, just like Lovie Smith did last year. What's going on, guys? I'm back with, it's not even a Bears reaction video, but it's a Thursday Night Football game which greatly could impact the Chicago Bears draft pick this upcoming April, because if you guys have been living under a rock, okay, we own the Carolina Panthers first round pick from the trade we did with them last year in the draft. We own their first round pick this year. We own their 2025 second round pick as well. But this year, guys, the Carolina Panthers are the worst team in football so far. They only have one win on the season, and the Patriots were right behind them at 2 wins, and they could have caught up. Okay, if the Panthers slipped up and won a game somehow, the Patriots very easily could have caught up and moved our draft pick to number 2 instead of number 1, which still would have been great, don't get me wrong, but having the number 1 overall pick in a draft of this caliber would be a completely different story, okay? It would be that much better. It would be like last year when we moved from 2 to 1 at the last second. It would be like that, except even more, because the prospects in this year's draft are being hyped up a lot more than the prospects in last year's draft, which looks a little bit silly in hindsight. Like, nobody saw CJ Stroud doing amazing, but at this point, guys, the Carolina Panthers would need to win multiple games for the Bears to not get the number 1 overall pick. Okay, if I pull up the Tankathon standings right here, so you guys can see there's a separation appearing here, right? There's a separation of about 2 wins, and the Panthers, like I mentioned, would have to win at least 2 games to give the Bears the number 2 overall pick instead of number 1. Now, it could be that they have to win 3 games instead of only 2, because it depends on the strength of schedule. Okay, the opposing strength of schedule. If you have a lower opposing strength of schedule and you're tied in the win department, the lower strength of schedule gets the higher overall pick because you went up against worse opponents and you still sucked the same, right? So if Carolina and New England both have 3 wins, it would depend on the strength of schedule. And we have no idea how it's going to end up. Right now, their strength of schedule is pretty close. Carolina has a slightly harder strength of schedule by 0.001 percentage points. So that could very well change. And maybe the Panthers have to win 3 games instead. But regardless, like, I don't even think the Panthers would be winning 2 games, let alone 1 game, with how bad they're playing football right now. Okay, if you guys missed it, there's a lot of chaos going on in the Panthers organization. There's reports about there being a Hunger Games culture in the Panthers front office, with coaches texting the owner behind other coaches' backs, and Frank Reich got fired, and there's so many differing opinions right there. There's also a report about the Panthers actually having front office members texting potential head coaching candidates like Ben Johnson and telling them not to come to Carolina because of how bad the situation is. So I really do feel bad for Bryce Young, because he's a nice kid, a nice guy, and he's being put in a terrible position to succeed, but I just don't see how he is going to succeed this year to end the year with how bad of a supporting cast they have on both the offensive line and at the receiver spot. And looking at the Panthers schedule coming up, I'll put that on the screen right now, but it's not a terribly hard schedule, but the Panthers are not good enough for any game to be easy, okay? Every game is going to be a dogfight, and there are a couple good teams here, okay? There is the Green Bay Packers, who, as much as I hate to admit it, they're playing really good football as of late. They got the Jaguars on there, who I think Trevor Lawrence should be back for that game fully healthy, and they have a pretty good squad. And the Saints already beat them earlier. The Falcons already beat them earlier. The Buccaneers also already beat them earlier. So I do think the Panthers maybe do sneak in 1 win here down the stretch to end the year, but I cannot see them getting 3 or 4 wins. I just simply cannot, and that's not even me being biased as a Bears fan wanting my pick to be high, okay? I don't think anybody across the NFL is picking this Panthers team to win many games the rest of the season. So that means, guys, the Bears again in back-to-back years could be having the number 1 overall pick. And I don't want to talk too much about what I think the Bears should be doing with that pick until the season is over, okay? I want to see what Justin Fields and this team can do to end the season, because there are still 5 games left on the schedule. We still have more sample sizes to evaluate Justin Fields, and we do have an outside shot at still making the playoffs somehow, okay? That sounds absolutely delusional, and it probably is, but we're only 2 games behind the number 7 overall seed in the NFC, and maybe the Bears go on a run and sneak in with how good they're playing on defense if Justin Fields can pick it up a little bit. Now, You know, again, I'm not expecting that to happen, but I do want to see what happens the end of the season to officially state what my opinions are on what we should do with that number 1 overall pick. But you guys know me, like, I'm a big Fields fan. I still am hoping and praying for a way in which he can work out here in Chicago. But if that's not the case, guys, we're going to have the number 1 overall pick in a pretty quarterback talented class with Caleb Williams, with Drake May, and I know both those guys are pretty polarizing prospects, but they're also very talented quarterback prospects, which I'm sure many Bears fans will be excited to have on this team and try to develop. Now, if Ryan Poles does decide to keep Fields, give him another shot, and trade out of the number 1 spot, we are going to get a massive franchise-changing, probably the biggest haul in NFL history to move out of the number 1 spot, depending on how far down we go, right? Like, if you want to stay in Marvin Harrison Jr. range, you probably have to stay in the top 3 or top 4 and not trade too far back. But even trading back to pick number 2, 3, or 4, you're probably going to get a lot, because that's how good, that's how talented the quarterbacks are at the top. And remember, we only have this pick because we traded back from number 1 last year, and this is the Panthers pick, right? So if we trade back again, get more future first round picks, Ryan Poles just discovered an unlimited first round pick glitch in the NFL system, and I have to give him a lot of props for doing that, okay? As much criticism as Ryan Poles has garnered during his time sometimes with the Chicago Bears, with us losing a lot of football games, he has put the Bears in prime position to turn this thing around really, really quickly if we make the right decision at quarterback, the right decision at head coach, because he has surrounded the Bears with so much cap space, with so much young talent, with so much draft capital to acquire more high-end elite players on rookie contracts. Like, Ryan Poles did these things because of one tank year, okay? Every single loss that we got in 2022 seems like it was 100% worth it, just for the fact that this could turn out to be one of the best trades, one of the biggest trade hauls in NFL history. The fact that we turned the number 1 overall pick last year into Darnell Wright, Tyreek Stevenson, DJ Moore. I cannot forget about DJ Moore, a true number 1 receiver in this league, but also probably the number 1 overall pick in the draft this year, which we could trade back from again and get even more picks. Like, oh my god, man. Like, depending on how we use the rest of these draft assets, which also includes the 2nd round pick in 2025, which also could be pretty high from the Carolina Panthers, depending on how we use all these picks, like, this could turn out to be probably the best trade in the history of the NFL, again, if we actually use these picks correctly, because Ryan Poles got so much value out of just one tanking season. And obviously, we had to get very lucky to have that happen too. Like, obviously last year, like, Lovie Smith is one of the only reasons why we got the number 1 overall pick. We had to have so much go wrong against our team, and this year in 2023, we had to have the Panthers absolutely implode on their coaching staff, on their offense, and we had to have lucky stuff happen, like the Steelers somehow losing this game to the Patriots at home. That made no sense whatsoever, but it somehow freaking happened. And I'm just so happy, man, that the Bears, you know, really have a chance to do something that has never been done, at least in my lifetime, okay? Build something sustainable. And again, they're going to have to make the right decision here at quarterback, whether that's keeping Justin Fields, moving on from Fields, and at head coach, probably firing Matt Eberflus, getting a better guy here in charge. That's going to have to happen. But if they do those things, guys, the Bears could be very, very good for a long period of time with how Ryan Poles has set up this franchise. Leave your comments down below. As always, bear down.